Hello and welcome back to another episode of Solo No More. I'm your host, Catryce, and today we are going to kind of discuss one of my biggest character flaws and kind of dive into some reflections that I've had, some realizations, and how I have seen this also come up. This theme come up in conversations with my clients this week and everything. So to give some context, some backstory, not full backstory, but some context into, the inspiration for this episode is mid-April, I decided that I was going to run an 8K. Actually, no, I decided that I was going to run this 8K last year when I did the fun walk / run. I think it was I think it was 3 miles, so like a 5K maybe. But it was like a fun walk / run for this event that also has this 8K race. And I was a cross country and track runner in high school. I did a little bit. I did cross country for one season in college. But fun fact, I have chronic knee injuries, and we'll dive into that some other time. But that's kind of why I only made it to through the fall of freshman year of college being a competitive runner. Going on though, I told myself while doing this walk last year, I was like, next year I'm going to do the 8K. I'm going to run. I'm going to race. And I told myself this. Around this time, I also told myself that I was going, no. The year before, so that's 2024, looking at fall of 2023, I tell myself, I want to run the NYC marathon at some point. Okay. At first, I told myself I was going to run it in 2024, but my family and we decided that we were going to go to Disneyland. So I was like, you know what? That's okay. And then I told myself I was going to do it this year. And then as I was doing planning for the business and planning retreats and everything, it just ends up that the best time for me to host a client retreat would be during the weekend that the marathon would be. Going on though, so fall of 2023, I tell myself I want to run a marathon. Spring of 2024, I tell myself I'm going that in 2025, I'm going to run an 8K. I signed up, I registered for this 8K mid-April. The 8K is mid-May, and I'm recording this episode before the race. We still have a little bit of time, but we are in race week. So at the end of this week, the race is taking place and I will be running. But in this last month, I've worked out, I've moved my body, I've gone for walks and everything, but I haven't trained. And this happens. This is classic Catryce and how I approach running or racing. Like I said, high school, I did cross country and track. Cross country season was late August through early November. And then track season was early to mid March through roughly mid-May. The time in between that, the time in which I did not have to show up the time in which I was not required to show up to practices, I was not running. I'd never trained in the off season. Sometimes I'd go for runs. There would be groups of people from my team, my teammates would get together and go for runs, and sometimes I would join them. But hardly ever did I do that. Hardly ever did I actually do any off season training. The thing is, though, and why I continue to do that and why I now am in this predicament where I waited until literally race week to start seriously training for an 8K after not competitively running for years is because when I was in high school, when I was in middle school, this started when I was younger than just a high schooler, but I would not train in the off season, and then I would show up to the season, train and everything, and I'd always be in the top 5 for varsity on my team. I always did really well. I always competed really well. My brain was trained to believe I conditioned myself to believe that I was so good I didn't need to train, or that I was so good that I only need to train during the season when I was actively racing. And who knows, there's a lot of what ifs. What if I had done the off-season training? What if blah, 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 blah. Could I have been better? Maybe. Probably. But I was really good for as little running as I did. And honestly, this week, as I've been training, as I've been going and taking myself out on runs, and I've said this before, because when When runners talk about their love for running and their love for competing and all these things, people look at them crazy and they're like, why? Like, running is not fun. And let me clarify for you, I don't like running. I especially do not like running long distances, but I do love winning. I love to win. And I'm good at running and competing for running. And so if that's where I can get my trophies, medals, and ribbons, that's where I'll go. That's what I'll do. And something that I've also noticed as over the course of this week is like I hate running alone. Not because I'm scared or fearful for my safety, like that is like an aspect of it. But like I just hate running alone because the only times I would run when I was like actively a runner in my runner era, I was running with other people. And during races, I wouldn't be chatting and conversating with people, but during practice, I would. So this last week, as I've been training, it has been brutal. And Reese is not a runner. Reese refuses to run. I think that in order to have Reese go on a run with me, he would actually need to be on a scooter, like an electric scooter, or he'd need to be riding a bike. That's okay. To each their own. One day he'll go on a run with me. Because I do have this, like, I set these, I set, like, timelines and deadlines for myself. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to accomplish all these different things. And for whatever reason, to me, I'm like, I hate running, but I do plan to run a marathon. Going for runs is going to stay part of my routine to some degree. It's going to stay part of my life. I don't know if it'll be part of my routine. We'll see. But to really shift this over to talking about like business and how this has been coming up is in Evergreen Support Network and Greenlight Society this week. I've had several conversations with the girlies talking about, they find themselves super overwhelmed, they're super burnt out. They have these big goals though for their businesses. And when I talk to them about like, okay, maybe we need to upgrade your systems, maybe we need to, you need to delegate, you need to outsource, you need to hire help. There is a lot of tension that comes up where they're like, oh, X, Y, and Z, like I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I like what I'm doing right now. Let me just tell you, I love just chilling on the couch, doing my solid core, going out to solid core and doing that workout, going to Soul Cycle every now and again. But like, I am doing that. I maybe do those workouts like once or twice a week. And those workouts aren't built to prepare me for a race. If my goal is to run an 8K and I don't want to walk and I want to run and I want to compete, and I was on the phone with my mom and I was telling her, I was like, I have not trained, but I have told myself that I have to be in the top 100 for my age group / gender, because it's like, females 25 to 29. I said, I want to be in the top 100 and I need to have a time that is under an hour. And she was like, Catryce, that is so crazy because you have not been training. Like, why are you setting these parameters for yourself? Like that you have to hit these benchmarks when you have not been training. I'm like, I don't know, because I know I could do it, because mentally I know that I can. And as I've been having these conversations with my clients and everything, and we've been talking about this, is they talk about how comfortable they are right now, where there is discomfort in the idea of learning a new system, having to onboard someone and bring them in and have them help out. But as I've been thinking, and I went on this 2.5 mile run, and this is like where this inspiration came from. I was like, I need to record an episode about this. But as I was on this run, I was thinking about the idea of like, I had this goal. I was like, not just a goal. Yeah, we'll call it a goal. I had this goal. I signed up for an 8K. I said, I'm going to run an 8K. And then, of course, over the course of the time, I also set other goals for myself. Like, I want to be in the top 100 for my age group, and I want to have a time less than an hour, under an hour. I have set these goals for myself. But then I waited until the last minute when your pants are on fire. And, I mean, fire like our pants on fire. That's not the thing. But there's a fire under my ass. There's literally a fire that I'm like, I have to train because the race is like this week. There is no more like just dinking around with it. And it's time to actually take it seriously. And so often I see this with business owners, and I'm seeing this come up with my clients, is this idea of we're wanting to set these big goals. We want one of my clients this week, she's next year in 2026, I want to hit 6 figures. And I was like, okay, that's totally doable. We can do that. I can help you do that. But as we were talking about, what is holding her back right now, she's a full-time mom. And I'm like, okay, great. We can balance motherhood and being an ambitious, entrepreneur. That is okay. We can do that. But as she was talking about, the pain points that are coming up, what's holding her back from showing up in her business more, I was like, okay, we need to upgrade your systems. You need a better CRM. You need more automation. You need to be able to, when you're focusing on your kids, focus on your kids. When an inquiry comes in, you should not have to drop everything and be like, oh my gosh, I need to go respond to this inquiry so then they book with me. We were talking about this and she was like, oh, well, I like my system. It feels overwhelming to even think about moving over to something else. I'm like, but the system you have right now is not actually supporting you in the way, and it's not laying a foundation for you to hit the goals that you have without you burning the fuck out, feeling overwhelmed all the time. I believe that you can have it all. I'm a firm believer in that. Yes, there is some give and take to everything. That's life. That's life. But if you want to be a full-time mom and you want to be a full-time ambitious entrepreneur, you can do it. You just have to have the systems and support in place to actually make that possible so that it's not all on you. Doing it all on yourself, doing it all on your own, is ultimately what holds so many entrepreneurs back from their goals. Because you're so busy trying to keep, if you're juggling balls and everything, you're so busy trying to keep everything up in the air. But you're also adding maybe you started with 3 balls that you're juggling. And you're juggling and it's super easy, but then you add a couple more things. And it gets a bit harder, and then you add a couple more. Eventually the balls will start dropping to the ground. But you have to have systems and support to actually help you. And that's something that is so big is I've been talking a lot about CRMs this week, talking a lot about, auto responses to inquiries, how you don't have to be the first email that someone receives from you does not have to be an email directly from you. It could be an auto response that lets them know that you will respond personally in X amount of time. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some space to actually breathe and live and really work it into your schedule versus being so reactive. That's another thing is I feel like I see so many business owners and a lot of business owners who enter my programs, who I work with, who I love. It's so fun to work with these women. But at the same time, when I have these conversations with Reese, as I'm like, oh my gosh, so-and-so just joined. And this is why I think that she's a great fit and everything. But it's also the fact that I look at it and I'm like, there are some simple, easy wins that we can get in there that you will start getting the traction and start seeing the success you want. And then we can kind of build upon that and really start scaling. I think that so often it's there isn't a foundation, but you want to start scaling. And I've been in that place. I remember starting out in business and I had, goals of, day one as an entrepreneur, I was like, I want to have a 10K month. I have yet to have a 10K month, but the thing is, the difference between who I was then and who I am now is that I now have a foundation to build upon and actually start scaling. You can't start going up the mountain. Usually, okay, and it's been a minute since I've gone on a hike, but usually you don't get out of your car for a hike up a mountain. I'm based in Seattle, so right now I'm imagining Rattlesnake Ridge. This is what's in my head. You don't get out of your car in the parking lot and immediately start walking up. There isn't there is some time, some space between the parking lot and the actual trailhead that gives you some time to actually warm up to it. But again, laying a foundation. I don't know if that was really a great analogy, but of course I don't have a script, so I'm just kind of going on the fly and whatever is coming to my mind. But the idea of having an actual foundation to build on is so freaking key. And sometimes I think also what comes up is this idea where you don't want to pay more money for a system. You don't want to pay, you found I had a girl recently who is interested in one of my programs, and she was talking about how she hired someone to help her with her social media, and she was paying them X amount of dollars, and she's not seeing the results that she wants. She doesn't feel like she's being heard, and she wants to go in a different direction. The thing is that when I asked her what her budget is for support, her budget was like what she hired for and what she got, like based off of her budget, made sense. Because, she was paying less than $500 to have $500 a month to have someone like run her Instagram for her. A good, seasoned, experienced social media manager who, has some concept of like actually having a strategy and all that stuff. That's going to be like $1,500 a month minimum. And yes, there is the concept of like, as people are growing their business and they're just starting out, like, trying to figure out their pricing, but you, to a certain degree, you do get what you paid for. And I guess like ultimately the thing is that yes, you can set like whatever you set your mind to, you can accomplish, and where there's a will, there's a way. But you can't just say, oh, I want this, and not be willing to take the steps to actually make it happen. And sometimes you're going to find yourself in a place where I'm finding myself right now, where you set a goal, the timeline, like your deadline is coming up, the timeline is getting shorter to be able to actually take action. And you find yourself scrambling. And will I finish the race? Yes. But at the same time, I'm going to be dead. My lungs are not ready. They are not ready for 5 miles. I was barely able to do 2.5. And I've been using ChatGPT as like a trainer a little to get some guidance on what to do. And ultimately, and also this is another thing, like when I think about training and preparing for a marathon, like right now I have things that are coming up that aren't allowing me to like actually be like, okay, I'm going to do the NYC marathon. I don't really want to do multiple marathons. So I really do think I'm just going to continue to put myself in the for NYC. I do not see myself regularly being like, yeah, I want to go run over 5 miles. The thought of running 5 miles on Saturday of this week is insane. I've never ran a race that is longer than a 5K. Going on though, but as I'm thinking about that marathon, when I am like, okay, I have room in my schedule, I am in the lottery for getting a spot in that race, I'm going to hire a trainer. So right now I'm using ChatGPT, but that's because I have a concept of what I need to do. I've done races like this before. I've run more than 5 miles in a day at a time consecutively. I've done that. And this is just like more of a fun, let me go out and do it, see how it feels. I am really excited to have Reese come out and watch me race. Like he's never experienced that before. But something that I've been doing with like ChatGPT is I have my Apple Watch and I have been recording my workouts via my watch. It's tracking my heartbeat and those types of things. But every single time I take a screenshot of like my little activity page, when I go over to my phone and it shows me all the stats and I plug that into ChatGPT, it tells me that my heart rate is too high. That if my heart rate beats per minute are sitting at like 190 when I'm running right now. And they should be under 170. I'm going to be dead after my 8K. Yeah, after my 8K. For a second I was like, 8K? Switching between the 8, like it being an 8K, 5 miles, sometimes the conversions in my head, I'm just like, cannot compute. Going on though, the thing is that I don't think even with all the training that I do this week that I will run my 8K on Saturday and be able to maintain under 170 beats per minute. The thing is that I'm scrambling, and what happens when you are in the 11th hour, when the deadline is fast approaching, you get scrappy with it. You are just right now I'm throwing spaghetti at the wall. I'm just like, I hope that these workouts stick. I hope that the runs that I'm doing work, like help me, and they will. But I definitely could have been working on this sooner. I definitely could have been going on 1 to 2 runs a week every week between the time that I signed up and race day. There's more that I could have been doing, and I think just all too often, and something that I've been thinking about is just this. I see this same pattern happen with business owners all the time, and this used to happen with me, where I had this goal when I first started out being like, oh, I want to have 10K months. but then I wasn't selling. And then now I'm selling more consistently, and I'm watching my income grow, and I'm watching myself have more consistent high revenue months. But the thing is that it takes repetition. It took having the right support, having the right systems, having to start over sometimes. Like right now I'm having my ClickUp, my project management system rebuilt because the way that I had it set up before was not supporting me in the growth that I wanted. Like it was causing more tension than it was relief. Did I want to go drop that money? No. Do I have a wedding coming up that's super expensive? Yes. And probably next week's episode is going to be diving into that. My feelings about, money and finances and the wedding and all that. But the thing is that it was necessary. And I fucking love the gals who are building out my ClickUp for me and helping me do some SOPs as well. It was necessary. Was it expensive? Yes. But it's only expensive right now because of where my bank account is sitting. Like, who knows? This time next year, that will be like, yeah, sure, let me drop X amount on whatever. But ultimately, the thing is like, and I keep saying this, but to wrap this up, you have to be willing to get uncomfortable to hit the goals that you have. Success does not come from staying in your comfort zone. Usually people aren't setting goals for themselves that are super easy to achieve. Like, yes, there's the concept of like, oh, my goal for today is to mop and vacuum and mop my apartment. That's easy. But when we're looking at our careers, when we're looking at where do we want to be 5 years from now, usually it's not within our current comfort zone. And if you're not willing to get uncomfortable, if you're not willing to ask for help, you will burn out. You will feel overwhelmed, and there's a good chance that you probably won't accomplish your goal in the time frame that you want to. That's all that I have for you this week. I will chat with you next week. Thanks for tuning in to Solo No More, and yeah.